Welcome to the Restore for Life show, where wetlands thrive and wonders grow. From tiny tadpoles to reeds so tall, we'll dive into the magic that binds it all. Meet Sam Tofts, who will be your host through the story of wetlands, where science, stories, and inspiring insights come together. Let's uncover the importance of these ecosystems.
Hello, and welcome back to the Restore for Life podcast. On today's episode, we'll focus on the climate regulation role of wetlands. Are they a source of greenhouse gases or sinks of them? We'll find out soon. Our guest today is Dr. Szilvia Ádám. Szilvia is an expert of river ecology and GIS and has a PhD about nature conservation, ecology, and landscape historical studies on floodplain forests of the Danube Islands. Since 2019, Szilvia has been a key figure at WWF Central and East Europe, working as Regional Freshwater Program Officer based in Budapest. Under her coordination, the research team demonstrated how reviving floodplain ecosystems can turn vast landscapes from greenhouse gas emitters into carbon sinks, linking biodiversity recovery with climate change mitigation. Szilvia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure for me.
Oh, it's all ours. Thanks. So we'll get straight into it, really. Where did this all start for you, Szilvia? Did you always know you wanted to work in wetland research and restoration, or did this kind of develop over time?
Yeah, actually, during my studies, I figured out that I would like to deal with rivers. Especially, I love the islands because the islands are very mystical places from my point of view. Even the Romans used the islands as special places. Later on, chapels and monasteries were established on the Danube Islands. This is why I selected this topic for my PhD study. I think this specialty is because the water flows the islands around. So it is a bit close to also widely, it's a bit closed area, but also a widely open site at the same time. Maybe this is a reason why people feel easier to sing or to relax out there. Especially for me, this topic provides a real sense of peace. Always be on a riverbank. It's a calming pleasure.
Lovely. Did you visit a lot of these islands when you were younger?
Yes. Actually, I was born in Budapest. When I was young, we lived there, not so far from the Danube. There is an island in the middle of the capital of Hungary, in the middle of Budapest. We call it Margaret Island. We spent many times walking along the riverbank of the island. My father told many stories about the river, mainly from his childhood. I loved those stories. I remember I could spend hours looking in the gravel for snails and shells, run up and down from the waves. I enjoyed jumping on the rocks or climbing up to the willow trees, which have incredibly twisted trunks. But by the time now, I learned a lot, and time is changing, the rivers too. Unfortunately, by now, those native snails that I used to play with are hard to find. They're replaced by shells of invasive species. I know the negative impacts of the high waves generated by ships. The waves have negative impacts on animals, especially on young fish. And I would like to eliminate those rocks, which covers the riverbank, to which I used to love to climb up. By now, I would like to remove them to let the river flow freely. And in case of trees, I also know that only some fragments remained today of those floodplain forests, which once covered really vast areas in this region. I know that this sounds bad, but I'm not pessimistic, although I'm Hungarian. During my studies, I analyzed many historical maps about the Danube. I've got a picture in my head of how the whole process changed, how the once wide floodplain landscape partly got lost. I know the steps led to the actual state, so I can also see the potential for restoring it. and floodplain ecosystem can recover really quickly, I have to say. It's possible by now, if it is possible, that the more knowledge I learned, the more I love the Danube and the rivers, the topic itself.
I have to say that's some incredibly wholesome childhood memories as well there. But no, yeah, it's really promising that you've seen how it's changed in your research and that you have the drive to want to restore it. So, fast forwarding to this year, in the beginning of 2025, WWF Central and Eastern Europe published a piece of research that you led on floodplain restoration, which had some quite promising results. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, sure. We, as the freshwater team of WFCE, again and again searching for more and more arguments to promote floodplain restoration. We already had many evidences that floodplain restoration has benefits for climate adaptation. The inundation of floodplains mitigates the flood risk, mitigates the drought. Wet floodplains are able to mitigate the heat waves, provided benefits for microclimate, offer sustainable land use and so on, but we haven't had information on the climate regulation impacts of these floodplains, even it is positive or negative. This was our main question during this research. Does floodplain restoration have mitigation potential or not? In this context, mitigation potential means the removal of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere and storing in the biomass or in the carbon stock of the soil. Climate change is becoming more and more important. For example, in our sea region in Hungary, we suffer from devastating drought periods. The reason behind this extreme phenomena is also the climate change. Our climate is controlled by the circulation of the greenhouse gases, but their atmospheric concentration is influenced not just by the human activities, but also by the ecosystems. They can reduce, but they also can increase them, the concentration in the atmosphere. Very much depends on the ecosystem type, the locality, the land use, and the used land management practices as well. In general, forests have positive service from this climate regulation perspective. Grasslands are almost neutral. Arable lands are the emitters of these greenhouse gases due to the used fertilizers, while some wetlands are considered as emitters in general. But in the beginning of our study, we faced with lack of data, especially in case of wetlands, which are a special type of, especially in case of floodplains, I mean, because they are a special type of wetlands due to the periodic floods. Actually, the floodplains are the mosaic of different ecosystems as softwood forest, pastures, hay meadows, marshlands, open water surface, etc. First, we established an expert board. We involved and worked with and consulted with really a lot of scientists and research institutes. The intensive and efficient cooperation in this team was essential to complete this pilot research. The intensive, this led to carry out our results, but before the results, we have to carry out field measurements. And we used geochemical modeling, which calculate the carbon, the nitrogen, and the water fluxes and their circulation between the ecosystem and between the atmosphere and also between the soil. So it's a very complex system. Finally, we concluded that the restoring former floodplains, that means the controlled release of floods by the implementation of natural water retention measures, and the adapted land use to these conditions could transform this landscape from greenhouse gas emitters into sinks. This potentially is a new information.
Fantastic. So, when you say with the restoration and controlled flooding of these floodplains, what do you sort of mean by that? How does that happen, get put
You
into
can
place?
imagine that yearly there are floodings on the rivers when the water level is high, and the former floodplains before the regulation works were flooded by these high floods. But now they are separated by flood protection dikes, but there are sluices in which more water can be turned into the area, this former floodplain area, and we want to increase the water amount which is released to that area during these
Okay.
floods.
Okay. And it's not just carbon dioxide, is it? It's other greenhouse gases, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. This is a very important point, so thanks for this question. When we talk about mitigation, everybody is focusing on the carbon or the CO2 itself. But in case of wetlands, that would be misleading because wetlands can be both sink and both source of the three main greenhouse gases. The other two significant greenhouse gases are the methane and the nitrous oxide. It is very important to focus on them as well because of their global warming potential. It means that over 100 time horizon, the heating potential of methane is more than 30 times stronger than CO2, while that of for nitrous oxide is almost 300 times stronger impact. They are more aggressive gases compared to the CO2. But this is a very complex system, like the nature itself. From the point of CO2, wetlands are both sinks and sources of the CO2, but the sequestration is higher in general. It depends on many things, the age, the locality, the management, and so on. For methane, it is a bit more tricky because wetlands generally known as the sources of the methane. Methane actually comes from the anaerobic decomposition processes, which is some kind of decomposition processes without oxygen. But on floodplains, the microbial activity is changing due to the periodical floods. So sometimes they emit and after sequestrate the methane. This is special for the floodplains. For nitrous oxide, as the most aggressive greenhouse gas here, this mainly comes from denitrification processes which happens in the soil. It's a kind of aerobic decomposition, so it needs oxygen. The floodplain is mainly the emitter of them, but just during a short period. This comes from the soil. The wet soil is the emitter here. Actually, the open water surface emits only nitrogen. So, and this is not the greenhouse gas, just the nitrous oxide. It happens mainly when the upper soil layer is wet. So it's changing due to the periodically flooding. The emitted amount depends also on the available nitrogen forms. This is why the arable lands, as I mentioned, are the source of high amount of nitrous oxide due to the used fertilizers, because they adds more nitrogen to the field. During our research, we measured these parameters on a simple site located on the Middle Tisza region in Hungary. We used these measurements for calibration and validation of our used model and concluded that in case of our pilot area, the high amount of carbon sequestration offset the overall emission considered the all three greenhouse gases. This is the additional thing what I have already mentioned. Actually, there is another type of thing This is the exchange between the ecosystem and the atmosphere. But there is this is the second half of the story. The first half is the carbon stock of the soil. There is scientific consensus that the carbon stock of wetlands is the highest compared to any other type of ecosystems because of this high biomass productivity. I mean the extremely dense vegetation of these floodplains, which sequestrate high amount of carbon, high amount of CO2 in the biomass, and it also increases the soil organic carbon content. That was already known before the study, but about the greenhouse gas balance, which is the indicator incorporates and analyzed the three greenhouse gases. It was that part was the added value from our research.
Okay, and I guess doing research in this specific area doesn't mean it could be generalized to all the floodplains across the globe, correct?
Yes. Yes, wetlands are very complex systems, especially the floodplains, which is a special type of wetlands. I've already mentioned it. But not just the mixture of different habitats is important, but the periodical inundation factor also makes them special. Many factors depends on the locality. The soils are very different. The methodological factors are different. The vegetation is partly different. The solar radiation also is different between the, let's say, the middle Tisza and the lower Danube and so on. So this is why this was my or second reason why we had to make measurements, local measurements. The first is the lacking data of floodplain pastures. This is why I said they are mostly valid for this region, but actually it's better than nothing for other regions as well.
So as a restoration champion, what would you say are the most urgent needs to increase the impact of restoration efforts for these types of ecosystems?
Yeah, it's the gold question. The wide scale willingness for change, let's say. Actually, the willingness is mainly determined by the subsidy system, especially in our region. Depend on the direct payments. So the financial incentives is the key. There are large potential in it. We do advocacy work. And the second is the cooperation with the farmers. The Danube region itself lost around 80% of riverine floodplains over the past 300 years. This value from Hungary even higher. So most of our former floodplain are used now as arable lands. The intensive crop production does not want periodical inundation, so land use change is needed. Not everywhere. In our study, based on the elevation model of former deep floodplain area, we analyzed 4,500 hectares large deep floodplain area. We found that 2/3 of this former floodplain site would need some level of land use change. Although agricultural production is still feasible on those areas, but less intensive management needed, like more floodplain forestry, more hay meadows, pastures with grazing livestock, or even crop production with short duration plants can be feasible there.
You mentioned that fertilizers were also a contributing factor.
Yeah, actually,
to
it's not
emissions as well.
allowed when inundation happening on the area. So when floodplain restoration happens, the floodplain became more active, and the fertilizers not allowed to use there. So it's without fertilizing
Don't
those
want that
areas.
going into the watercourse, right?
Yes, yes. I
Creating more
mentioned
problems.
the available nitrogen forms. So if we use fertilizers and use and inundate the area, the nitrous oxide emission will be much higher. So it's not our goal.
Yeah.
In case of our theoretical tested and controlled inundation, we make this theoretical test. We inundate the area during winter time. We found that in the past past years, floods came mainly during this winter time. So this is the case in the Tisza River. We would release the flood as additional water during winter time. So by the beginning of or the end of May, the water would disappear from the area because of the natural infiltration and the evaporation to the atmosphere. So water cover will be less by the end of May. This is the time when the main cultivation period starts. So on some areas, the agriculture use can be continued with croplands as well, but we need to find other type of solutions, other type of crops, which can be harmonized with this inundation.
So it is possible for the two to agriculture and restoration to be side by side, but it just needs to
I
be.
hope so. Yeah. This is our next step, to come up with viable alternatives, to come up with other type of economically profitable crops. We are on it, and we continue the policy advocacy work as well. Actually, it is not easy to say, but thanks to the devastating drought periods, it's a weird sentence, yeah, it's not, I don't like it, but thanks to them, we experienced that the farmers become more and more open to such kind of solutions, more open for change. Some of them started to retain water in their land. Actually, we have a farmer who has 20-hectare grazed land. We cooperate with him. His land is not along the river. He is in another very arid area of Hungary. We call it sand ridge. He blocked there's another type of problem there, because the area was drained by channels, and the local, the precipitation, the inland excess water is drained by these channels, but he blocked the drainage channels and inundated 7 hectares. The water kept there during just 3 weeks. After it's infiltrated and evaporated, but it was enough to refill the groundwater stock, and his biomass production, the nearby maize production actually, on the remaining more than 10 hectares multiplied. So it is another kind of evidence that these pilot stories can help us to boost these kind of activities.
That's great to hear. I'm sure he didn't think he was contributing to environmental research when he did it, but that's good. So yeah, Szilvia, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Before we wrap up, do you have anything you'd like to recommend to our audience? Something maybe that inspired you or can inspire others?
Okay, first I would like to share you and with the kind listeners a recently produced film. The title is Wasted Waters. This is available on the YouTube channel of WWF Hungary. The narration is Hungarian, but it has English subtitles. This is about the disappearing water from the landscape. Sometimes depressing, but also inspiring with the implemented good examples. I hope actually the hope is the last to die. So we have time to restore. I would say I believe that some paradigm shift has already begun towards the more sustainable landscape in our region, but there is still a lot to do, even more now.
Absolutely.
And I would like to recommend everybody that spend many time close to the rivers, walking, paddling. It is good for both the health and good for both the soul as well.
Fantastic. Well, we'll have a link to your YouTube video in our show notes. And once again, thank you so much. And we wish you all the best in the important work that you're doing. Thank you, Szilvia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam, and a big thanks to our listeners tuning in to the Restore for Life podcast. If what you've been listening to is of interest to you and you'd like to learn more about Restore for Life, you should check out our website and our social media, which can be found in the description of this podcast. Until next time.